And I assume there are no personnel items for closed session?
No.
Okay. In that case, let's just jump straight into the library director's report.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. As we'll talk about a little bit later, Feldheim did reopen October 5th for 16 hours of service where people can pick up books on hold, either through the computer or via phone. So we're into week 3 of that, and we'll talk more about that in the staff report as I followed up on some of your questions from the previous meeting. Other items of note, we've been fortunate to receive $14,000 from the State Library for more Overdrive content. We're already fortunate that the foundation pays the annual subscription and also a monthly amount for new content. So we'll be able to augment that with the money from the State Library that we can use through June 30th of 21. So that's always a good note, especially in these times where there's more remote usage of our materials. So that should be popular.
Very
And
good.
then we've also received word as far as our literacy funding. Literacy department is funded by grants from California Department of Education and the State Library. We use projected amounts in the budget that's passed by the Mayor and Council as of July 1, but we don't receive the true amounts until this time of the year, as it can usually be a little more or a little less. So for this year, we actually came out a little in the plus, so that's a good thing to come up with a little more funding than is anticipated. Also, since we didn't meet there for several months, at the end of May, the literacy coordinator, Paula Miller, retired. And then in mid-September, we had a new person assume the literacy coordinator position, Gail Sorensen, who most recently worked doing literacy work for the Tuolumne County Library, where she had overseen their literacy program for about a dozen years.
Which library?
Tuolumne County up by Yosemite.
Oh, okay.
And where she had overseen the literacy program for about a dozen years. So glad to have her on board and have somebody who has had a background in literacy work, and she has jumped right in and has made an impact already in taking on several projects and then working with her in adjusting these budget amounts. And then also in September, Linda Ye, who had done a great job over the years as our programming coordinator, retired as well. So that position is currently just vacant, but again, someone who contributed greatly with her ability to do all kinds of programming for all age levels, author events, unique events. So somebody hard to replace, but we appreciate her service and contributions to the library over the years. So those are some of the highlights of the month in review of what we've been up to.
Okay.
And then moving on to library statistics. Again, our snapshot of the month again.
Moderator, could I ask a question of Ed?
Yes, sir.
16 hours for Feldheim, but the three branches, including Ingram, remain closed. Is that correct?
Remain closed as of now, yes.
Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Right. And then page 6, snapshot of the month, talking about our activity again. Overdrive has been very popular. We're up in the range of about 800. One month we even got up close to 1,000, but we weren't able to quite get there. Maybe now, since we'll have funding for a while from both State Library and the Foundation, maybe we can even break 1,000 items checked out in a month.
Ed, do you think that that's a function of having more new material, or?
Yeah, it's more new material. And then we've also, a few months ago, joined part of a consortium of other libraries that are either small library systems or individual library systems, including Moorpark, Camarillo, Beaumont, where then our patrons can check out their Overdrive content and their patrons can check out our Overdrive content. So that probably helps a bit as well.
Mm.
But again, it's trying to get more bang from the buck. So when Overdrive offered us that option, we were willing to take advantage of it. Also, since people can not only get the online library card that we offer, Overdrive within its Libby app also offers a library card as well. So people can come in and can go and sign up for the library card directly within the app. And so that also, I think, has boosted the circulation as well. Looking at September, it looked like
Ed, Hope, before you move on, when those patrons from the other library check out materials with our audiobooks, do we count that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Right. And then it's also looked like in September about a quarter of the circulations were for the patrons who had signed up for the library card online. So especially that's also helped to increase it as well. So that's the statistics in a nutshell. Budget performance report. A quarter of the way through the year, as the year keeps rolling by, I have the usual report by program, and then the one that shows our expenses broken down into the categories of personnel, including salaries and benefits, contractual, internal service charges at all.
Yeah. And what is cultural development construction?
Well, what that was is going back to the fiscal year of 1920 when we were looking at the 7% cut of general fund revenue, where the city manager's recommendation that was approved by the mayor and council is that essentially our budget was still cut that 7%, but they were able to offset it from these what's called cultural development funds to make up the difference of $139,000 within funding for materials and supplies, library books, maintenance of software and equipment, and other operating expenses.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So that was through the generosity of the mayor and council at the city manager's recommendation, so that we didn't lose any service in spite of the 7% cut. So that's the budget and statistics, unless you have a question.
Nope, don't see any questions. Just wanted to inform the board that I've continued to work on moving the portfolio from Morgan Stanley. We selected Wells Fargo, and Ed and I met with them yesterday morning, and the paperwork for the transfer is now in process between Wells Fargo and Morgan Stanley. So what they'll do is simply move all of our assets like for like from Morgan Stanley to Wells Fargo. And once that's completed, I'll have a more detailed report, but wanted to give you an update on that.
Okay, very good.
Yep. Tom? Oh.
Could you remind us why we needed to transfer? There was a basic reason, but I forget what it was.
Right. Morgan Stanley has made some changes in the size of portfolios that they will support. And the minimum was going to be $1 million. And so we were nowhere close to that for government entities. And our broker, that's probably not the right term, but Barbara Fleming really tried very hard to get a waiver for us, but they just said no. And in fact, I guess they're going to move that ceiling or maybe move the floor, I guess I should say, from $1 million to 10 million for government entities. And I said, okay, we will take our tiny marbles and go somewhere else. So that's it for me, but I will have a follow-up once that's all done. And I will also invite representative from Wells Fargo to come to talk to us about our asset allocation and give the board some decisions to make about how we want to manage that fund going forward. But for now, the important thing was just to get it moved.
Very good.
All right, Mr. Erjavec.
Okay, so then we'll move on to staff report, item 5 on page 12, the library service to public after the COVID closure. As you probably all recall from last month, I presented my plan for the initial phased reopening of the library service. And then we did have some questions that the board had for me, so I've attempted to research your questions. As you know, one of the questions was custodial service. At Feldheim, the custodians are here Monday through Thursday until 1:30. On Friday, they do their cleaning course when normally on Fridays, and then normally, as you know, we're open on Saturdays. But to this point, with the limited reopening, we've just been open 10 to 2 Monday through Thursday, not on Saturday. And then Row and Via Senor are cleaned after hours. Since we rent the Ingram space, the custodial is the landlord's responsibility. And the restrooms at Ingram are just in the common area. They're not in the library facility. So then one of the questions the board had from the last meeting was how other public libraries in the area were handling public restroom cleaning in the COVID era. So I did contact 7 other public libraries in the area. They said they really weren't doing any additional cleaning of the public restrooms beyond their regular scheduled service. And almost all of that service was taking place outside of the public service hours. Yeah, and then I summarized the responses on page 13. We've not added increased cleaning of our restrooms. I mean, we weren't doing anything different with our restrooms except we put up bigger signs than usual saying wash your hands. Cleaned once during open hours and at night, on call as needed. Third one, our restrooms get cleaned each evening after we close for the day. No midday cleaning unless something significant should happen. Next one, custodians come and clean in the morning before we open, 4 days a week. Next one, restrooms are open and we clean them daily when the building is closed, as in the past. Next one, we haven't changed any cleaning schedule either. Sign posted, remind people to wash their hands and sanitizer. One library actually did close their public restrooms with their city attorneys okay. And we do have signage outside ours asking people to maintain the physical distancing, wash their hands, wear the face covering, of course, and don't enter the facility if they have symptoms. So really on the question of what other public libraries in the area are doing, and none of them are really doing more as far as public restroom cleaning than before COVID.
Okay.
And then the second question was the question of, is the library required to have public restrooms open during its public service hours? As you know, the city contracts with Best and Krieger for legal services. According to the attorney who researched this question, he didn't find any state or local requirements to maintain the public restrooms in the library to be open when the library is open. I mean, he found general guidance from the CDC regarding restrooms CDC provides, if possible, restrooms should remain open if the facility is open for visitation. And then there obviously were then the standards for the restrooms being open. So there really wasn't a definite requirement or answer to that, but that was the best research that he could find. Third question that the board had was, does the library's reopening plan need to be approved by the County Department of Public Health? I contacted the Department of Public Health and it said it doesn't need to review our reopening plans. It did recommend following the state guidance. In June, state guidance was released by the state library for public libraries that encourage a phased-in approach and recommended continuing to offer online services as much as possible online. And then it also pointed out through other state guidance, including the retail guidance, and then the other direction from the CDC and others. It was also supposed to be revising those guidelines, but it's been a process where we haven't received anything yet. So those are the questions that the board asked at the September meeting that I attempted to research and provide you feedback to the best of my ability. Do you have any questions?
Well, now, have you talked to any other libraries like in Riverside or LA County or anything and see what they're doing about this COVID thing?
You know, are you talking about as far as the restrooms?
No, just, yeah, restrooms.
Yeah, well,
generally.
yeah, and question number one there, I mean, those are libraries in San Bernardino and Riverside County.
Okay, all right.
Where, like I said, of the 7 I talked to, really no one is doing more as far as restroom sanitation, restroom cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
As far as hours of operation, most of them are doing pretty much like we are, where they're not at their regular hours. It's a limited service schedule with limited hours compared to normal, and not all of the operations, although some of that depends library to library.
Okay.
Ed,
Yes.
I'm not sure that we need to do anything, but if you'd like us to approve the general recommendations, we can certainly do that.
Well, I guess as the question is, I guess, do you feel comfortable with my continuing to try to expand some services, even if there aren't restrooms or custodians on site during open hours, based on the fact that other libraries really aren't doing more?
Oh, yeah, I think that we've expressed that approval last time, and I don't
Right.
have any reason to think that the board would change that. So I think carry on, and I can assure the board that Ed and I are in frequent contact and consultation. So if there were ever some interesting plan that Ed came up with that I thought the board ought to know about, I'd call a special meeting. But I think we can just carry on as we're going.
And
Right.
as I would start to think about the possibility of doing something at the branches, would the board be comfortable if I would begin to expand out one branch at a time instead of all at one time?
Yeah, to see how it goes, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like our opening here, it's kind of making an assessment of what questions come up, what issues are we encountering, so on and so forth.
Right.
So the board's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable. I'm sure that there will be some public reaction if A is open and B
Right.
isn't open.
Yeah.
But if we are doing that in a phased way, we can explain that that's the reason it's happening. And if we give projected dates for when the other 2 branches will open, that might also set the public's mind at rest.
Right, or if the first branch, everything goes so well, maybe you can open the next ones simultaneously.
So Ed, carry on. I think that's the will of the board.
Okay. All right, but we figure we don't need any formal action here.
Well, you know what? Let me make a motion. I rarely do this myself, but I'll make a motion and maybe someone will second it. The motion would be that Ed Erzsébet continue to judiciously pursue opening branches and expanding service at Feldheim as circumstances permit.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved unanimously.
And I'm sorry, who made the second?
Several
Well, I
people.
think two of us did.
Two of
Multiple seconds, just say.
All right. Well, I'll give credit to Val, but
Okay,
All right.
the motion passed 4-0.
Right.
it's unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6.
And then item 6, as you know, we rent at Ingram, and we have a rental agreement with the option on an annual basis. To this point, it had just, since we hadn't met, it just extended on a carryover basis. But here's the lease for the year. The rent remains the same at $25.69. I just have to send them a letter that we want to extend the lease.
Okay, that's good.
Is that $25.69 the same amount we've been paying?
Yes, they've been very generous in New Hope, so we'd like to thank them for continuing this rental amount for many years.
Yeah, that's been a real blessing. And Ed, do you know if they set up the ropes or the whatever?
No, I don't, but I can check with them.
Okay, and if you don't, I'll try and swing by there and just see what's happening. Or I guess you could call. Oh no, there's nobody there, is there?
Well, I'll check.
Okay, all right, good enough. Is there a motion to approve the continuation of the rental agreement?
So move, Val.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's approved unanimously. And those are the only 2 items that we could consider because this was a special meeting. So we've concluded our business, and I will adjourn us at 3:33.
Very good.
Oh, Tom?
When is our next meeting? When does it anticipate being? I want to put it on my calendar.
Okay. Ed, when's the next meeting?
Well, I assume we'll probably still needing to be reliant on Zoom. So Zoom, because we have the graciousness of IEMG doing our meeting, they prefer the 3rd Tuesday. So if we can book the 3rd Tuesday of November on your calendars, please, at 3 p.m.
The
Third
17th.
Tuesday.
I believe it's the 17th.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
And you'll send out the usual reminders. Okay. All right. If there's no further business, we're adjourned. Folks, thank
Okay.
you very much for showing up.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.